I want to just jump right in and talk about the memo that came out on April 13th, 2022, and you've spoken about it in the past, which is why I asked you to join us here for this season of NJ Criminal Podcast when we're discussing all things related to cannabis. What do you think precipitated Acting Attorney General Platkin to send out the memo in April?
Sure. My understanding was that the state was going to start opening up the first dispensaries for recreational use, that the Cannabis Regulatory Commission was going to issue licenses, and that some facilities that were medical marijuana were going to be able to switch pretty quickly to sell recreationally. So with that step, you were going to have for the first time regulated cannabis, or be able to purchase regulated cannabis in the state as a recreational user without a medical marijuana card. So it's my understanding that's what prompted the Attorney General to send out a memo communicating to us what the law was, in his view, that you cannot take any adverse action against an employee for cannabis use while not working. And that's what it was. He's expressed, I believe, publicly that he has concerns, but he has to follow the law, and that his opinion, there's no carve out for law enforcement.
Right, and I think that memo indicates that it is an interpretation of the law, not a ruling or decision, and still notes that there would be zero tolerance for cannabis use, possession or intoxication while performing duties of a law enforcement officer. Why did you choose to, publicly speak out against this memo? What are some of the issues that you see in permitting sworn law enforcement officers in the state of New Jersey to use cannabis, whether on duty or off duty?
Well, look, I have issues with the legislation. I think the legislature should act and make it clear that police officers should not be able to consume cannabis off duty at all. So I have concerns. I've expressed those concerns publicly, but some reasons for that. Cannabis stays in your system for up to 28 days, right? Mm-hmm. Being able to say that someone was under the influence at a specific date and time is something that is a challenge. And there's not scientific agreement or consensus in the scientific community as to, what level of, cannabis is in your system or your blood is a per se violation like we have with alcohol. So one of the examples I talk about is when I was president of the State Chiefs Association, I traveled to Toronto with our executive director, and we were there to learn how they managed legalizing cannabis across the country. And we were in the Toronto Police Department headquarters, and the commissioner spoke with us about his policy, where he said that police officers could not consume cannabis 28 days prior, because that's how long it can take to be out of your system. And he did not want to be in a position where if an officer involved shooting, an officer involved accident, and there was blood evidence and showed cannabis in the system, and then they were in a position to argue, well, that was from 10 days ago. He or she was not under the influence at the time of the shooting or the accident. Now, of course, the fire siren goes off while we're in the middle of...
It always does. I remember I worked down at Cape May Courthouse for a long time, and right around this time, it always went off. So that's good. We know you're at work, Chief. Yep.
So, that particular concern is one that I share. Now, right next door, the Peel Police Service, the commissioner there, who had a significant police force, his position was he was going to treat it just like alcohol, that you had a responsibility to show up for work and not under the influence of any, substance, whether it be alcohol and or cannabis. And if they saw signs that someone was intoxicated, that they were going to take action and document their observations and go through the disciplinary process. So, just in Canada, right next to each other, two departments that border one another, two, different approaches. I share the concerns of the commissioner from Toronto. I don't want to be in that position where we have to argue, especially now with the scrutiny of law enforcement in use of force situations and just about everything that we do, that we're trying to articulate, oh yeah, well, we have an officer that used cannabis, but he or she wasn't under the influence at the time. So that's one of my main concerns.